one of a Full and Bloom interview with producer-engineer Joe Foglia. Inside the album, Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. More info at fullandbloom.com. Now, I know historically they began Heaven and Hell with Ozzy, but I'm assuming by the time you're working with them, Ronnie James Dio is in the band and they're ready to record the album?
Yeah, what I recall from that whole thing is, the Jack said that we want you to start a project in Studio A. Black Sabbath's coming in. And so, okay, fine. They start on Monday or whatever, when it was. And you would wait for all the carnage, the flight cases of all the amps and everything that was theirs that they took on the road with them shows up at the studio. And then what you're trying to do is bring everything into the studio and set it up the way they want it. Now, what was unique about Black Sabbath was they had, let me think for a second. They had a gentleman that was the guitar roadie, and he was more than just a guitar roadie. He was a guitar genius, and they wouldn't let anybody touch the guitars, and his name went by Dawk, D-A-W-K. And the kid was a real character. He wasn't a kid. He was a typical roadie, long hair, the whole thing. And he just did everything perfectly when he rebuilt their guitars. And he and I established a relationship, and, we became friends because the project went on for what I can recall is 3 months. So, you would be his go-to guy. I need to get this in town. I need to go here. Where's the music store? And I forgot where he was from, but he was the king of Hammond B3s and Leslie's. And he did, who's the boss? From Jersey, what's his name?
Oh, Bruce Springsteen, yeah.
So he did Bruce Springsteen's guitars and organs, but he rebuilt the organs to where they were perfect. And he'd take everything apart. So he was that type of guy. He came from Springsteen, and then he did Sabbath. And so when we did everything, it was Dawk, and it was the Four Boys. And Ronnie, this was the first album that Ronnie came aboard on. I guess maybe they rehearsed elsewhere. Ronnie did a lot of the writing of the lyrics. I think Tony and Geezer both did a lot of the music writing. And Bill Ward chimed in wherever he could. Bill Ward was the punching bag for the band. They were just pranking him 24/7. I mean, and we would only work, I think our day started 10. It was never daylight out. And we always left before the sun came up. And it was Tony, and Tony was the best. I mean, he was so sweet, very nice man, very kind. And Geezer was very quiet. And Bill, all I remember is he had sweatpants and no shirt and just hit those drums as hard as he can. That's where that whole thing went. And then at that time, I'm sorry, the producer's name
Martin Birch
was right. So Martin was also the producer/engineer.
Right.
So I was over Martin's shoulder all the time. Martin says, "Oh, I need a limiter patch in here," or "Why don't you move up some of those overheads closer?" Or "Let's change out those overheads to something else. Let's go to the Sonys for those," or let's, so he just didn't leave the board. And when we were tracking, always, and very cheerful, always joking, always smiling. He would chime in on all the shenanigans that went on. I'd say the shenanigan versus a recording, I think there was a 50-50 share there of those two things, which it made it easy to go to work every day.
Right.
And,
just to backtrack a tiny bit with Bill Ward, are you there when they light him on fire?
Oh, yeah, you heard about that? Yeah, I was sitting next to him. So, Bill, we're all sitting in the control room. The tape machine's on the back wall. And, we had a bottle of alcohol that we used with the Q-tip to clean the heads. And that used to sit with some editing tape and some other miscellaneous things. So Tony used to take the alcohol and he'd have his socks on. He'd play almost barefooted, or he had the Converse sneakers. But when they said he threw alcohol on his feet, and then he lit his foot on fire, and then he's trying to stamp out the fire, and then the rug's catching on fire because all the alcohol's in the rug. And poor Bill, it was like torture all the time. It was like constantly picking on Bill. There were so many unmentionable things that happened. I still remember as clear as day. We got into using sound effects. For some reason, I pulled sound effects out of something, and we would just add sound effects into whatever Bill was talking about, that we would roll some sound effects into it. And it just they just thought that was the funniest thing in the world. So, that was there when they set him on fire, yeah.
And so does he go to the hospital right after that, or how does that end up? How did the fire get put out?
He just had another beer.
He just what? Had another beer?
Yeah. And he just, put it out by stepping on his feet in himself. Tony's sitting there laughing, and then he goes, I need another beer, Joe. We'd have a big stock of beers, and it was great, but it turned out to be a great album, didn't it?
Oh my God, just a masterpiece, really. It's one of those ones that I don't know if it's been certified. I thought I had heard somewhere that it had been certified double platinum in the States, but online it says it only sold 1 million. But it's like, how's that one not like 5-10 million? I love that record from start to finish. Yeah,
I sent you the picture of the gold record I ended up getting from them, right?
No.
Oh, you didn't? Where did I send it to then? I sent it someplace. I took a picture of the golden reel I have for that, and then also the Ampex. If you used Ampex tape and not 3M, Ampex gave you a golden reel, which we did. And I don't know where I sent that to.
I always do a little video to these. I'll definitely include it.
I have it hanging up I have a little studio here in Orlando that I just keep my chops up. And like I said, one day I want to do just jazz recordings, because I loved going out with Mac Emmerman, the owner, and doing those jazz recordings. They were great. But so I'm sorry, I went off track.
Oh, that's fine. Any other pranks stand out with Bill? Are there any other ones that were just like phenomenal?
There's some that I don't really want to mention, because nowadays it was wrong, but back then it was fine. But we had, I think it was good stuff.
I think if you preface it with that, when you preface it with that was okay back then, we'll be fine, right?
But what we ended up doing for some reason, that was the other thing that we did that we thought was hysterical. But I went ahead, like in the cutting room, I think for some reason we had helium in the cutting room, and I went in and I sucked a bunch of helium down, and I came into the studio and started talking to them, in the high-pitched voice. They thought that was the funniest thing in the world. It was hysterical. They just, all night long. So we used up all the helium in the cutting room, and they had to order some more for the cutting room. But when they ordered more, they ordered 2 or 3 more cylinders and kept them in the studio. So we had... Tony would sit there and take a hit of the helium and, of course, start singing some of the songs. So did Ronnie. Everybody was doing it because that was the funniest thing ever. So then the next step we went with the helium is they told me to go down to the local porn shop and get one of those blow-up dolls. And I said, okay. So I go down to the porn shop, which we were in Miami, and I think there was a few of them down on Dixie Highway, which was close to the studio. So I come back with this blow-up doll, and you know the type I'm talking about. Its arms and its legs were stiff straight out.
Right, big mouth.
Yeah. So we had the bright idea of filling it up with helium. Well, we wanted to launch it. We had a Criteria shirt. And you know what? I have a feeling I have pictures of that somewhere. But we put a Criteria shirt on it, and we were out in the parking lot. We were trying to launch this thing from the parking lot. And we weren't engineers like, physics engineers. We were just regular recording engineers. So obviously it was heavier than the amount of helium. So I forgot who had the bright idea of going and get some garbage bags and filling all the garbage bags with the helium and then tying the garbage bags to the arms and the legs. So we used enough garbage bags with helium to fly this doll, launch it from the parking lot of the studio, and there she took off face down with a Criteria shirt on, and it lifted off like a helium balloon into the atmosphere, and where it ended up, who knows? That took like a whole day.
Right, I was gonna say, no wonder it took 3 months to do the album.
Yeah, I mean that was a fun thing to do.